Good afternoon and welcome to the Caregiver Teleconnection. My name is Glenda Rogers and I'm going to be your facilitator for today's session with Dr. Tam Cummings. I'll tell you a little bit about her in just a minute, but Candace Ramos is with us today. And our session today is being sponsored by Vitas Healthcare, and we want to give Candace the opportunity to tell us a little bit about Vitas. So go ahead, Candace.
Thank you, Glenda. I'm excited to be here. I can't remember if it's our 5th or 6th year of sponsoring Tam, but we're excited to be able to sponsor these calls for you, Tam, and to have you on. So I work at Vitas Healthcare. We provide hospice services. And I just want to talk a little bit today about, is it time for hospice? 3 questions to ask yourself and to think about as you get off the call today to decide whether it's a good time to move forward with hospice. So hospice care is optimal moment that gives patient the gift of time. They can come to terms with their diagnosis, spend time reminiscing, say goodbyes, get their affairs in order, and focus on quality of life at the end of life. Optimally timed hospice care also relieves healthcare professionals, caregivers, and families of their crises, stress, and challenges of increasingly challenging symptoms and situations as patients decline. Is it time to consider hospice? Answering these 3 questions can help. Number 1, is the patient or your loved one, your family member facing one of these life-limiting diseases or conditions? Of course, dementia, Alzheimer's, cancer, cardiac disease, or respiratory disease. Is the patient or your loved one showing these signs of decline? A couple of them could be that curative treatments are no longer effective, or they're having side effects that are prolonging suffering, discomfort, or pain. Over the past 4 to 6 months, maybe they've lost about 10% or more of body weight. They've been hospitalized a couple of times or in the emergency room, and they're declining in their physical activity. Number 3, have you taken the patient's wishes into considerations? Prior to now, have you discussed advanced care planning with your loved one and really talked about what their wishes are when this time was to come? Or now, it's never too late. It's never too early to have the conversation. I'm sorry. It's never too early to have the conversation and to decide when hospice might be right. If you have any questions about hospice or looking for information, you can visit our website, www.vitas.com, or call 1-800-93-VITAS, and we service patients across the nation. Where I'm at in lovely Texas, California, Florida, just to name a few of the states that we're in. Thank you and enjoy the call.
Thank you, Candace. Are you driving while you're doing this? Because you are frozen and you're cutting out, and I'm thinking, she's driving. She is really. Thank you, Candace. I appreciate it. Really do. Yeah, I see you're breaking up, so we couldn't hear anyway. All right, let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Tam Cummings if you do not know her. Dr. Tam Cummings founded her company in 2009 with the mission to inspire, educate, and empower dementia caregivers. Now her professional gerontological practice in Texas Hill Country is recognized as one of the leading educators of dementia caregivers and program design for dementia care nationally. Tam, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having us. And as I was listening to Candace do her 3, the 3 criteria that are set for a doctor to write an order of hospice, I realized with great horror that someone in my personal life, we need to go ahead and have a discussion about hospice, because she certainly met the criteria for the second part of it. So, thank you to Vitas and thank you for all the years of support, but you really do. Hospice people are the best. They really, really are. And you do not want them in place the final 2 days. They can't even get the equipment there. You can't even meet the team, and they can't even know your person's history and do the special things that make it so incredible. So hospice should be in place the final year of life. And don't be afraid to ask for it. If you don't meet the criteria, your loved one doesn't meet the criteria, they're not going to forget about you. They'll be back every month or so to check on your loved one to make sure that they're there to offer that support. So don't be afraid of it. Death is not something we're taught anymore, and that is hard. And hospice folks you've got your social worker, your pastoral, your medical side, your caregiver side. They're great. Glenda, you've used them in your family. We've used them in ours. They're the best. But yeah, as I listened to Candace, my heart side went, eh. Okay, so
Better
before
be
we started, Glenda, you and I've talked a lot since January when we were on last, and we decided that one of the things that we needed to let people know was something I had never considered before, but the idea was brought to me by a caregiver. The caregiver, so somebody that's much younger than we think about. It's actually a couple in their 50s. She has a rare form of one of the frontal temporal dementia variations, and they are not financially set for it, and he is still working. He's in his mid-50s. He had a friend who offered to set up a GoFundMe page, and he called crying because within just a few days the GoFundMe had raised enough money to be able to do care at home for his wife for the next, what he told me was that he now had 5 months of mortgage paid. And it was something that, of all of the things that I have thought to say to a family about, here's an avenue where you might look for help, it never occurred to me to have families think about reaching out to the GoFundMe site and see if that's something that can be of help or assistance to someone, because you just never know. This is such a devastating disease. And Glenda, you and I have seen how families are having to do care longer and longer and longer at home before they even turn to a nursing home care because of the expense of what this disease costs and the length of time that this disease takes. So first of all, GoFundMe. Glenda and I have that on our checklist. And then the next thing was a gentleman sent me a video. I asked him to videotape his wife and send her to me so that I could get a better idea of what stage she was in, because he was just describing stuff that was part this and part that, which makes you think vascular dementia, because the Alzheimer's just go through the stages, Glenda, one right after the other. Vascular hangs and hangs and hangs and then goes down. So he sent me the video, and I know, Glenda, I called you about it, and I said, my gosh, I've totally missed something in trying to help families understand. The gentleman videotaped his wife for me coming to bed. And it was obvious from where the video was that he was sitting in the bed and he was videotaping his wife. And he was trying to show me how she just doesn't follow instructions, Glenda. She's just not doing what is clearly being understood to do. And he said to her, and they live in a cold area, or it had been cold. She had on several layers of clothing, which again, people with dementia are colder than you and I, so they do put on extra layers, but she was actually in a snowy place. So she had layers on layers. He said to her in a very kind and gentle voice, honey, it's time to get ready for bed now. You need to put your clothes on, take that top off, and get your pajamas on. And she looked at him and said, okay, and turned around and walked over to the dresser and looked around for a little bit and moved some items, moved some pictures, moved some creams, did some other stuff, and then looked back at him and he said, now you're putting on your pajamas to go to bed. And she said, well, we don't need to do that right now. And he began to correct her and I called you, and I was so upset because every single thing he did was wrong, even though he had no intention of doing anything wrong. He did not see that she couldn't understand the first thing he was saying, and that he had strung one thing after another thing after another thing after another thing together, and that she needed it broken down piece by piece by piece, not 4 steps following each other. He wasn't understanding that by the stage she was in, and especially because she had one of the communication variations of frontal temporal dementia, that she, especially much earlier than other forms of dementia, was not able to translate language or sound. And so he thought he was clearly saying, put on your pajamas. We have no idea what she was translating, but she certainly didn't reach over for her pajamas. She instead walked over to the dresser. And on top of that, he didn't understand that there was a point where you have to, in the beginning, display. Glenda, I need you to start undressing your blouse. We're tired and we're getting ready for bed. And then he didn't understand that because she's female and she's going backwards in time, that doesn't necessarily mean she sees her husband and the father of her children. She may see an older man and think that she's a young woman or a young girl about to be assaulted because he's trying to take her clothes off. And so I realized there's this whole level of care that we've got to help families understand better, that nobody's doing anything on purpose. It's all brain damage. But the same way you had to break it down for the child because their brain had not developed, you're now having to break it down for the adult because their brain is dying. And so you have to remember every little tiny step you took with an infant, you're now having to take with this loved one. Does that make sense, Glenda?
Totally, yeah.
And I'm so excited. I finally found a button because I'm on my iPad today because I've temporarily misplaced my computer, but I can actually see faces. And normally I'm just looking at a blank screen talking. So this is really exciting to see y'all, except, later on when we're all crying. So if you see yourself doing that, if you see a family member doing that, you just sort of have to back up and self-correct that, yes, this looks like my adult loved one, but the reality by the staging tool tells me how much brain damage there actually is and what that mental equivalency is. So if your loved one has the mental ability of an 8-year-old, that tells you you've got to step in and make decisions for that person, because who else are we going to trust to do it? And because they're no longer safe to be to be living alone or whatever it is they're doing, driving a car or whatever it is. You can't expect that the state has caught up with where medicine is. You can't expect that medicine has caught up with what I know, what Glenda knows. We're specialists in a field. And so don't berate yourself. Just continue to do everything you're doing to learn about how to take care of the disease and how to break everything down. When your person doesn't follow the command, it's not stubbornness, Glenda. They're not understanding what you just asked them to do. And so that's why we model. And that's why when we start doing additional assistance, we put our hand underneath their hand to bring the food up to the mouth. Because first of all, if I put my hand over, I look like I could be hitting you. And I'm much more familiar with seeing my original hand. So in time, I'm going to use my hand under theirs to help them unbutton their shirt, so that for that little bit of time more, they can unbutton the shirt. But then eventually I have to realize I'm going to unbutton the shirt. It's just that for men, you have to pay attention so that this wife, this woman that you've loved so long and so well, that she knows that it's you and you're not doing anything to harm her. You're helping her get ready for bed. And so that, I think, is one of the hard things that families face, Glenda.
Yeah.
What it was, and then we've got some letters we need to look at real quick.
We do. I was just looking at this one. Okay, that's what I thought. I had to test my memory just a little bit. Okay, this is a rather short one that we got. And it reads, Dr. Tam mentioned in one of her videos that there's a particular dynamic with adult children and denial of dementia. My husband is not diagnosed yet, refusing to be evaluated, and only child daughter is supporting him in the belief that behaviors, delusions, and memory problems are just normal aging. Doesn't sound normal to me, Dr. Tam.
No, and I think maybe the person hasn't quite understood what I was saying. What I was saying is that research shows us that there are 5 types. There truly are 5 types of children responses to a parent with dementia. And one of them is that the child seems completely oblivious that anything is going on. One of them is the child who says, oh my gosh, there is something going on and we've got to make a plan and see a doctor, and does everything. And then one of them is that. The other thing is that when the child is an only child, what a burden, Glenda. Oh my gosh, there's no one to turn to. The whole thing falls to you. And you, how many times don't really get support for that, even at a support group? Because they have siblings and they're not doing anything. Well, at least they got somebody to complain about, right?
Mm.
You've got nobody. You're doing it and you're expected to do it and do it right, or you're expected to put your life on hold. The other thing that I was saying was that only children frequently have a different relationship with parents because it's just you and the two of them. And so vacation is different and family life is different. And then I believe at some point I have said a lot of times we see children who have a specific, unique relationship. They're a daddy's girl, they're a mama's boy, they're a mama's girl, they're a daddy's boy. And so all of those different things together can combine for either a great experience or a child who simply doesn't see that something is terribly wrong. But everybody should understand in normal aging, there is atrophy of the brain, there is shrinkage of the brain, but Glenda, the brain is thicker and richer than it is when you're 20 years old. The roots on a 90-year-old person are this long. The brain roots on a 20-year-old person are this long. The brain may be shrinking, but there's huge volumes of information up in there. So that's why there's really not this change in thinking when you age. It's more of a slowing of a reflexive action. And it's more that your brain has more information than my brain, Glenda. You're older than I am. You have more experiences. You've lived in Alaska. I've never seen a moose. You've probably made moose jerky and wore a moose hide around. I don't know. It's Alaska. Isn't that what everybody in Alaska does? They eat moose and wear moose hides. So,
Moose
you know,
chili.
yeah. So that part I kind of understand maybe. But so to think that it's normal, that as part of aging, you have a delusion, and a delusion is a belief that's not real. And the most common delusion seen in a person with dementia is that someone is stealing from them. And it's because I can't find it, but Glenda's here and she was the last one here. And so she must have stolen it. And when I find it later on, I don't think, oh, I wrongly accused Glenda. I think, oh, how evil Glenda is. Look at what she did. And now I better go hide it before she comes back. The other part of that I just completely lost, Glenda, I lost what I was talking about with the delusion. Oh, the hallucination is something that the person sees, hears, or smells that's not real. Well, those are not normal things to have happen. And they're indicators of certain types of dementia. They can be indicators of an infection or something else happening in the brain. They can be an indicator of problems with thyroid, homocysteine, which is a hormone in the body. Vitamin D is in delta, vitamin B12, Bravo 12, folic acid, pseudo dementia, which is depression. So you got to find out exactly what's going on with this person as you plan how you're going to go ahead and do care. But it's not normal for any person to have those types of behaviors. And so the child is really missing that something's wrong with their loved one. And I, for the longest time, believed it was just they need more education. But research shows there really is a child personality that simply doesn't understand their person is sick. So it may be that you have to involve the physician with that child in order to get them to understand what's going on.
Good.
Wow, that
good
was a long
response.
time to say that. That took
I'm
me way
telling
long.
you.
Yeah.
When Tam and I were talking about, thinking people are stealing and being very suspicious. I have a friend that right down the street that has Alzheimer's. And so recently she said her daughter stole her remote control for her TV. Well, of course that did not happen, but she was the last person in the house. And so it disappeared, but it was on the bar. So yeah, it really wasn't missing at all, but a prime example of what you were talking about, Tam.
And another thing where families will hear it is you'll hire a caregiver because you're worried about your mama who lives in another state. And then the next thing you know, your mama fires the caregiver. And when you ask her why, she say, well, she was stealing from me. People who have caregiving community businesses, those businesses are bonded and licensed. the people that work there have state and national background checks run on them. They're not willing to go to jail for for exploitation of the elderly. It's dementia that you're witnessing, and it's a delusional behavior. And when you see it, it means that your loved one has significant brain damage. So it's just a clue of the advancement of the disease.
Yeah, for sure. And a kind of scary one. Christine with a K, I see your question there, and I will get to you right after Christine with a C's scenario here. And I'm just going to read some high points. Dr. Tam did read this in its entirety, as did I, but it's pretty long, so we want to be sure and get to the question. So my dad is 82 years old and has stage 5 to 6 vascular dementia after having 2 strokes this past year. In retrospect, he had signs of early dementia before the strokes. He has dysphagia, wrong words come out, constant repetition in the same few words, and questions and statements, mobility issues, incontinence, emotional dysregulation, and agitation issues. So here's Christine's questions. Should I move him closer to me? That's one. She's concerned about the prospects of transporting him 5 hours on the road to where she is. And also the incontinence and agitation is also a question for her. And she's also been doing Medicaid spin down for him. And she says, is it crazy to forfeit 10 months of Medicaid spin down and have to start over? She's really conflicted about what to do in this particular situation. It's a difficult one, Christine.
Okay, and then
there you are.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I was thinking about one other thing that we had talked about. So,
okay.
First of all, Christine, you're going through what every kid who cares about a parent or a loved one who lives 5 hours or 5 states or 5 continents away goes through. And God bless you for being the good kind of child that gets on the road and does all the things that you've been doing. So your homework today, as your homework always is with me, is that everybody online has to, at the end of the call, sit down today and write a letter to yourself about what a good caregiver you have been, because you've done things that are extraordinary in doing care for your loved one. And that even is for those of you who have done care for somebody who may not have been very kind to you or nice to you. Not everybody grew up with the Leave It to Beaver family. So first of all, yes, I believe, given what I read in your letter, that you need to move your father closer to you. It's going to make you feel better. It's going to make him feel better. And when it gets to the final part of life, you're going to be right there and not 5 states away. He's had 2 strokes in the last year. He is in stage 6 of the disease. He's not in stage 5. Just in the briefness of your letter, you're able to determine that that's how advanced his disease is. The fact that there have been 2 major strokes that have occurred in the past year show that his cardiovascular system is reaching the end of its output. He is closer to the end probably than you're thinking. And so when Glenda and I were looking at your letter, one of my thoughts was, I'm not even sure he would survive to the spin down finish. Each state does its Medicaid, Medicare funds differently, so I can't really answer you on that. I can just say, based on the decline that you describe in your dad just in the last year, you may not even get to the final spin down part. Do you understand? Just because of how advanced he seems to be and how he seems to be now making serious downward roads. I would certainly ask for a hospice order. I would ask for a doctor's order for a transfer by ambulance, given his physical state. I would hope they wouldn't have trouble doing that. It would make perfect sense to me that a child would want their father in the state and close to where they are. But the easiest way to do that is see if we can get the government to pay for it, or his insurance, or however that is. So that's something you'll need to find out from the physician. Otherwise, I have to tell you, I've transported a 96-year-old lady that I took a director of nurses with me who had a hypodermic needle with the prescription in it, because we didn't know what she would do, because we were transferring her from 1 state to 3 states away. And we wanted it to happen in 1 day, and we knew we were going to have multiple stops and multiple bathrooms. So we were talking about a 12-hour drive. We started at 5 in the morning and she had the best time. We had the best time. We sang all the way. The hypodermic was never needed. We all enjoyed the bathroom stops and everybody had a hamburger. So it can be what you're prepared for it to be. So if I have somebody who's highly agitated, then I'm going to need a friend or a family member to ride with me to make sure my loved one stays buckled in and doesn't accidentally unbuckle and try to step out of a moving car. I'm going to ask the doctor for something to help keep my loved one calm. And so they may give you something like a Valium for him on that day if you're the person who ends up driving him. Pick a community that's closest to you, the closest skilled facility to you, so that when you need to just stop by for 5 minutes, and that's really what you need to stop by for, bring a donut, bring a piece of pie, bring a cake, bring a cookie, come by and visit, but don't spend hours there, just spend a few minutes there. There's stuff that they're doing with him that when we visit too long at nursing homes or memory care, we interfere with their actual structure. But yes, definitely bring him and just find out how you're going to transport him. You can also, but it does cost a fortune, have companies that will transport with a nurse and things like that. But a 5-hour drive is really not bad. I can start that in the morning, have somebody go to sleep, lean back, be real relaxed, and I can be almost there before anybody needs to stop for anything. So just think about your timing. And again, this is all stuff to ask the doctor. The starting over, there are 7 things that make a home home. And if you look around you at the house you're in right now, these are the things that make your home what you call home. The first thing is your pillow. What kind of pillow does your daddy sleep on? I sleep on a gel pillow that's cold on one side, warm on the other. It is made for people who sleep on their side. Glenda may sleep on a goose down pillow that was passed down from her grandmother, and every year she gets cleaned at the dry cleaner. So there are 8 or 9 different types of pillows. The type of sheets that you sleep on. What does your dad like to sleep on? I myself do not like white sheets. I like dark colored sheets. That's what I grew up with, but every hotel I go to has white sheets, so I'm never comfortable. So the type and texture of sheets your dad likes, as well as the color. The weight of his covers, his blankets. I have, when I get home, a goose down cover, and I have 2 quilts that my grandmother quilted for me. My blanket, my bed covers are about that thick. I stay in really nice hotels. The bed covers are that thick. I actually rent a room with 2 queen beds so I can take all the covers off the queen bed and put them on my queen bed so that I have enough covers for that night to feel comfortable. The next thing that makes home home is your chair, your favorite chair. So dad's recliner gets to come with him. Okay. The next thing that makes home home is photos. Photos of family, but photos of your dad's family may be photos of you. They may be photos of grandchildren, or they may be photos of his parents, his grandparents, because as each stroke takes out memory, he may lose memory of you as an adult, but have more memory of his grandparents. So those are the photos we would put up. The piece of art that your dad likes. Nobody says they're home till they hang their art on the wall. And once they hang their art up, they look around and go, yeah, we're home now. Because art is so powerful to us. And then the last thing is a smell. And the smell is going to be your dad's cologne or your mom's perfume, whichever one it is that you think smells most like him. And when you visit him, you spritz it on the lamp in his room. You turn that lamp on, and the heat from that bulb will heat up that cologne and make that room smell like home. And that's what home is. And home is having a daughter who can visit me who isn't exhausted. Home is having a daughter who can visit me, and I'm not worried about her on the way back home because it's a 5-hour drive for her to get home. So move your dad. The reason you visit, even when they don't know you, is because every bit of research tells us that all humans get better care if they have visits from family. If the staff knows every other day you come through that room at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I can promise you at 2:30, he's being looked at closely to make sure care is being done. And it's not that people are bad, it's human nature. If I know the boss always looks at file A looks perfect. File B may be a little iffy, but file A looks perfect. So we go because we honor them. We go because we're teaching our children how to take care of us if something happens to us. And we go because we love them, and this may be the final time you have them, and you may have magic happen. I have seen a woman who had to drive 7 hours one way to get to the nursing home in West Texas that was the closest nursing home to her ranch where her husband was. And they had had something that all their life they had said this to each other. When they would part ways, she would say, I love you true. And he would say, your eyes so blue. And because of dementia, he hadn't spoken in months. And when she went to leave that day to start for home, because she would spend the night in the little town and then start the next day, she went by to tell him goodbye. And she said, I love you true. And he looked at her and said, your eyes so blue.
Mm.
And of course, when she got home, Glenda, what was the phone call she got?
Yeah.
So it will bring you peace of mind, and it's doable. It's doable. And the people at the nursing home are going to do everything they can to make it happen. They're going to help you make this happen so you're not alone. Okay?
All right.
I think we all those
Go ahead.
questions.
Go ahead, Christine.
Just a quick follow-up. As far as him probably not having that much time left, not entirely sure, and I'm no expert, but the reason he had the strokes was he refused to take his medications. And that's why he had the 2 strokes. And now he is taking his medications and he's actually doing well. So I kind of wonder if he might live longer because of that, because the strokes were not, he completely went off his medications and was eating horribly and doing everything wrong.
Yeah, all you've seen is a stabilization that occurs when people with vascular dementia get their medicine straight. They are stable for a while, but the strokes have already occurred, the dementia has already started, and the medication is now not what's stopping the dementia. The dementia disease has started and the brain cells are dying. It's just that he has more propensity that his are going to die in clumps caused by stroke activity. So that damage didn't occur overnight. That damage has been going on in his brain for decades. It's just very slow, and it's just how complex the brain is. And so the 2 strokes, when you look at how people die, if you listen to the criteria that Vitas gave, multiple hospitalizations with a decline in health that have occurred in the last year are an indicator of hospice care. And so that there tells you he's getting care, he's getting medicine, he's getting food, but it doesn't stop the death process. And it doesn't stop the disease process. Okay. So I think moving him closer to you is going to make you feel better. You wouldn't care that much that you drive that far that often to see your dad. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Thank
so
you.
your question.
Got to take care of you, Christine, so you can take care of him.
Thank you.
You've heard it over and over again. I know you're kind of giggling at me, but that's the word.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Kimberly. Did you have a comment?
How's everyone? I was listening this morning when I was riding to work, my elderly godmother, and I was just thinking that was it time for us to call hospice? Because over a year ago, they told us that that would be one of our options, but she was, no. And when I was listening to the 3 questions, my godmother fits into each one of them. I had an answer for because she's declining, and it's like, should I call the doctor today and tell them that I think this is what we need, because she's saying no, and
But I think, Kimberly, I think that generation says no because they think hospice means I'm going to die tomorrow and y'all don't want to tell me. And
yes,
all
that's
it means is we got a layer of professional care that our tax dollars pay for. And I want your godmother to get her tax dollar. I want every last tax dollar she paid the government to be used on her this final year of her life.
Yeah.
But it clutches your heart, doesn't it?
It does,
when she was
because
reading that today, I went, oh my God, I've been looking at this wrong.
yes, as soon as I thought of it, and I've been sitting here and I was like, I've got to call her brother, that, because I see where we're at. It's like some days I don't want to see, But then I asked God to take the blinders off, that I need to see what's going on. And I know what I've got to do. It's a very hard thing, because with her husband, she blames hospice for taking her husband away. I said,
Mm.
hospice just didn't come in the house and take him out. The doctor wrote an order. I've been in the medical field, a long time, and I'm like, it didn't happen. So she hears hospice, and it's just like, well, I'm gonna keep doing what I want. And now I'm like watching a decline every day. And it's ironic that I signed up for this for today, because I was thinking this morning that it was a decision that I was gonna have to make this week, like this afternoon, really.
So that message was for you this morning from Vitas then.
Yes. When she first came on and I'm like, oh my God, was she talking to me?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Kimberly, so
Thank
much.
you.
I noticed something, Kimberly, when I went into families, and especially families that have a strong religious background. And I think part of it too is I live in such a rural area of the country that I run into people that really do see hospice as we've just given up. And what I try to explain to them is there is truly a season and a cycle to life. I'm born in the fall, and I will die in the fall. My mother is born in the summer, she will die in the summer. And it's because after the age of 25, 79% of us die in the cycle of our life. Even people with dementia, even people with cancer die in the cycle of our life, it's called. And the ones that don't had a heart attack, they died in a car accident, there was war, something else happened that threw them out of balance. They had a surgery that saved their life when 50 years ago that surgery didn't exist and they would have died. And that's why so many obituaries, the death time is very close to the birth time. And the window is 30 days before my birthday, so April 1st or August 1st, to 60 days after my birthday, which is Halloween. So my window of time, my cycle of life, is that I will die between August 1st and Halloween. My luck, it'll be Halloween, and people will think, well, she didn't even get dressed up for this. Look how gruesome she looks. But we over and over again. And so what that tells us, and what I know, because thanatology is part of my education, thanatology is the study of death and the death cycle. And what we know is that the time of actively dying is 9 months. The time of conception to birth is 9 months. 9 months before you reach that cycle of lifetime, we begin to look for changes in that person. And those changes include hospitalizations, sudden weight loss, and dementia, inability to use language, continuous weight loss, all those 3 things that Candace talked about. And so for families, I want them to understand that all the great books of religion speak about a time to be born and a time to die, that there is a season, a person, purpose, and a cycle to life. And the other thing is to help the family understand these are tax dollars. Glenda, this is part of the Older American Act of 1964. These are our tax dollars. This is an extra layer of care of people who care about others, who have given their life and their purpose to helping others get through the final part of life, and to help families be able to hold their selves together during that time. And hospice care came from church care, and it is not meant that somebody's going to die tomorrow. It just means we're adding in a layer of professional care to make that person's journey as comfortable as possible. The second thing that I run into, and Melody or Kimberly, you've probably seen this as well. Glenda, I know you've seen this. Families believe that they have enough morphine to kill people. They believe that the nurse left me with morphine and said, give that person morphine. I'm going to give them morphine. They're going to die. All the morphine does is it relaxes the muscles right here. As people are in the final week, as in the final days and hours of life, this feels very constricted. It feels like an elephant sitting on their chest, and all the morphine does is relax that, so that their breathing does not feel so stomped on, so crushed down to where they can't catch their breath. You don't have enough morphine to kill somebody, so they're not going to leave you like that. And that, I think, are 2 big fears that I see in calling in and asking for hospice care.
No, Good, good, good. Guinevere, I see your hand is up. Marcy, did you have a question or is just your phone unmuted? No, there we go. Okay, that answered that. Thank you so much. And I see Christine, Tamara, and then Minerva posted something to David. So Guinevere, go ahead.
Yes, what I want to piggyback on is what Dr. Tam Cummings has said about stealing. I've been with y'all a long time, many, many years, and the stealing has gotten worse over the years. And I mean, steal anything and everything of mine. And it got to the point I would say, well, I know I had this, and I'd go out and buy another one or another one or another one. And it's gotten more profound in the last 2 years. And then it all of a sudden shows up. Sometimes it shows up in the exact place that it was. That's how good he is. And other times it's somewhere and you're like, oh, I know that's not where I had that. It's like almost they're trying to convince you that you're the one doing the stealing, and they are not.
Well, yeah, what he's doing, Guinevere, is called hunting and gathering. And so I've even been into communities that had dressers set up in hallways that were full of nothing but junk, just anything, jewelry, ties, gloves, watches, anything. And it was because it was recognized that people with dementia would wander by, dig through there, find something they liked, wander off with it. We'd find it 3 months later down the hall in some other person's room. And that's called hunting and gathering. And then because of brain damage, if you ask the person, what'd you do with that watch? They'd either tell you they didn't have the watch, they don't know what you're talking about. Right. They'd tell you the watch belonged to them, or they'd tell you the watch never existed. And then later on, when the watch showed back up, they'd tell you once again, that's their watch. Yeah. I knew a lady once that we actually had to wait until her medication hit at night before we could collect the jewelry that she had on, that she had taken out of other people's rooms. And you couldn't trade for it. Remember, I can't go snatch it away from Glenda. I've got to trade whatever Glenda has that's mine. I've got to trade with Glenda for it. You weren't going to trade with her because Mama gave her that ring and she wasn't giving it up. We'd have to wait till the medicine had taken her out. And then we'd put on Vaseline and slip the rings off, get everybody's bracelet and watch back to her, because she'd have 4 or 5 watches on. But it's part of the disease process. And if you ask her, the brain defaults to what is very logical. Well, you're here, you must have done it. Because remember, the brain doesn't know it's sick. And so the brain simply goes to a default, which is you're here, you did it. And if it wasn't here, I don't remember it, so it didn't exist anyway. So that makes you a liar. And so they revert back to this very black and white, concrete type of thinking that has this weird logic to it. But it's just not on purpose. Even though I know, Guinevere, that man's been driving you crazy for years, but it's okay. Yes. Hanging in there.
My car is filled up like I'm moving. If I leave, I got to take certain things because I don't want them stolen. I look like I'm driving a U-Haul van.
I've known families that have big locked trunks. I know families that have rooms that are locked and then the room is hidden by a curtain. I know families that have made the front of the door, Glenda, they had put a poster that was the poster of a bookcase. And the person with dementia never went in that door because they thought it was a bookcase. So families have had to hide stuff, all of that. That's why in nursing homes and memory care, they tell you don't bring the good stuff because it's not going to stay in that room. It's going to wander down the hallway with someone.
Well, Dr. Cummings, like when I assume and I see that, I've gotten to the point where he'll drop it months later where I had it. And I won't acknowledge that I found it because to me,
he wouldn't remember it anyway. Yeah, he wouldn't even remember what you were talking about.
I don't even acknowledge it. I just pick it up and put it back where I had it and wait for him to steal it again.
You better go put it back out in that U-Haul. I knew a family that used to buy 10 combs at a time. And they would just put combs everywhere. And whenever he lost a comb, they'd whip a comb out. Here was the comb. So he's just going to keep doing it. And what you got to do is just keep going. That brain damage is crazy. Brain damage is crazy. And then when he lays it down, go put it where he can't find it.
I do. Thank you.
Hang in there, Guinevere.
I am. I got y'all.
Yeah. Melody, I see your hand up there, but I'm going to jump over here to the chat box for just a minute and then I'll come back to you. So Christine with a K, it is likely that if I place my parents together, it is likely that, yes, if I place my parents together in memory care now, I'll eventually have to separate them later as they no longer recognize each other. I know you've seen that before, Tam, in your career.
Well, but I've also seen a couple that's been married so long that they've known each other forever and they just continue to live there together forever.
Well, that
Even
was
though
my
they don't
question.
recognize each other.
Even then, I mean, the odds of both of them making it that far along in the disease are very slim. Just because they can't both have the same modality. One inevitably would have a heart condition, you would just assume. So there's different physical attributes that come with each one. It would depend on the types of dementia that they have and how advanced those dementias are. One may be in stage 6, one may be in stage 4. And most people die of heart attack or stroke in stage 5 or stage 6. So most people die with dementia before the dementia becomes so debilitating that they wouldn't recognize each other. So you have a lot of ifs up in there. And remember thinking, what if is anxiety producing. That's living in the future. You got to stay focused on what you can control right now. But easily in communities, we see couples that live together happily until the end. I, oddly enough, saw a couple one time that had literally been married since they were 15. And they were entertainers. And they were now in their 90s. So imagine, practically their whole life they'd slept next to each other. And only in the last few days had they separated them because he had become very ill. And they both had very, very advanced dementia. And they came to her and told her that he had passed in the night. Did she want to come see him and tell him goodbye? And it was astonishing to me. She said, no, I don't want that memory. And I thought, good Lord, you're 97 years old and you have dementia. And you know enough to know I don't want that memory of seeing him dead. Wow. I just see love happen, and you see amazing things with couples, even when they're both sick.
Okay. Thank you, Tam. Marcy, I see you there too. I'm going to finish over here with the chat box. Tamara says, my husband with Lewy body spent 15 days in the hospital for delirium, but they found no infection or problem. I gave him cough syrup right before the delirium started. Could this have caused the delirium?
Absolutely. People with Lewy body are extremely sensitive to any kind of medication, and cough syrup certainly has some stuff in it. And then what doctors may not recognize is dementia itself causes delirium. So delirium may not always show up in blood work. It can be caused by untreated chronic pain. It can be caused by a sudden bout of pain. It can be caused by urinary tract infection. Over-the-counter medications could cause it, but the dementia itself could cause it. And it sounds like they kept him long enough to make sure they had him okay.
Yeah, great. Minerva wanted y'all to be sure and know that Candace Ramos from Vitas Healthcare had done a session on hospice care earlier this year. And so if you look for that podcast, that'll, give you a complete explanation of hospice and what they do. And David reminded us when we were talking about the cycles of life that Merle Haggard, passed away on his exact birthday. And I know Merle's not the only one that's done that, David. There's been a lot of people do that. So I was so fascinated when Tam introduced that theory. So now I know I'm going to die in the fall, probably. Okay, Melody, go ahead.
Well, hopefully not this fall or anytime soon.
Thank you, Melody. Me either.
A comment and then a question. I cannot speak highly enough of using hospice. And this is not a paid political ad for VITAS. We don't use them just because we don't. But I asked Dr. Tam to help me one-on-one try to qualify for hospice because I didn't know the language and how to do that. And she was so helpful. She did not ask me to say this either, but I credit her with coming to hospice early, I think, for my husband. who has had Alzheimer's dementia for 5.5, 6.5 years. The reason I wanted hospice is because it gave me somewhere to call at midnight if we had a problem. And my husband has a DNR and we weren't going to go to the hospital. I didn't have anybody to call except other lay people and family like me. And I'm grateful for hospice. My question, Dr. Tam, is, and I hope there's a question in here. In the last few weeks, we've had the thing of, who are you? You know, not recognizing me. Or are we renting this house? How did we get here? Not recognizing home, or not being able to address himself. And yet it's only happened once. And then the next day seemed like nothing was out of whack. So I wonder, can you talk about the first of things like that, and then how the person bounces back and what's to be expected ahead?
Well, it's, and don't go away because I want to ask you how you're feeling. You have to look at the connectivity of the brain and how complex the brain is. And remember your file on banana. You don't just have a file on banana. It was one of your first foods, and you found out you could hold it. It tasted really good. Then you found out monkeys like bananas. You and I grew up, there was a TV show called The Monkeys. They acted bananas. Now banana means crazy. Bananas are used to teach boys how to use prophylactics. Now you got banana in your sex file. You didn't know that was going to happen today. You can make banana bread, banana cake, banana pie, banana pudding, banana smoothie. You can freeze bananas, put a banana and dip it in chocolate. You can set bananas on fire and serve them over ice cream. You see a banana peel, somebody's going to slip and fall. There's a food called Banana Splits, a band called Banana Splits, a cartoon called the Banana Splits. How many files do you have for mother? Okay, so you saw the connectivity lost in certain files, but there are so many of those files. And because you're his wife, and because you've educated yourself on dementia, because you pay attention, family members see the first bout of incontinence. And then it may be a few weeks or even a month before you see it happen again. But you're literally witnessing the brain die in that area, and you saw the start of it, where that connection began to be lost. And there may be another million of those connections, and they're being lost in large amounts and you don't notice them. Or it may be that it's happening in another way. Okay, but you're just witnessing the loss. And because you know it's loss, and because you're a spouse who's able to look at it and go, this is a disease, and this is a disease process, and this is the brain, and this is what's happening to his brain, and that then equals this behavior, you're able to differentiate it rather than not even notice it, just be mad that it happened. And you're actually catching that here is brain death occurring right in front of me. Okay, now you look really, really beat. Are you okay?
I'm okay.
That, as Glenda says, Tam, you need to work on your delivery, and God knows I got a lot.
Really, Tam? Telling the poor woman she looks bad?
Melody, are you feeling okay?
I gotta work with her on that, Melody.
Maybe a little Zig Ziglar, or,
Yeah.
I'm dating myself.
Exactly.
No, you're calling it. I'm tired. I'm sort of thinking my life is slipping away here right before my very eyes. Anyway, you had me crying at the GoFundMe story. So doesn't take much for me to look beat or seem beat or tired. Yet I'm getting out. I took a break recently and I'm back. Here I am. So thank you for asking.
Well, sometimes if you can, and I understand not everybody's got endless amounts of money, but sometimes it is worth it to pay for 24 hours of care and go to a hotel and watch a movie and have room service, or bring in a nice meal for yourself. Try to do something for yourselves, because the goal is to get you through this disease process and to not lose you in the midst of it. And I always tell Glenda, I said, it's the weirdest thing. It's happened to me my whole professional life. I will find some strange, arbitrary piece of information about dementia, And I know it's so bizarre that sometime in the next week, somebody's going to call me out of the blue and need that actual information. So told Glenda, I said, I'm going to share two of them with you. One is called a silent seizure. And this is something primarily seen or believed to be seen in Alzheimer's dementia. But what happens is your loved one freezes for a few seconds. And then afterwards, it's as though nothing seemed to be different, but you've noticed that they suddenly freeze. The eyes may freeze, the eyes may blink rapidly. You see something different happen for just a matter of 5 seconds or less. And that is believed to be what is known as a silent seizure. And it's called a silent seizure because an EEG cannot measure it because it's a disruption of electrical activity in the deepest part of the brain, where the EEG can't measure electrical activity well. Another is something called a seizure, where the person is having shakes, and the doctor may refer to it to a seizure, and it's actually a type of stroke that the person is having. So seizures don't necessarily mean seizures in dementia speak, and silent seizures are something that can't be measured, but you may be witnessing. And then also remember that most strokes are transient ischemic attacks. They occur in the middle of the night. You're talking about strokes that are smaller than a pinprick, and the person usually just wakes up a little bit different in the morning. It's not the one TIA, it's the dozens of TIAs that occur that begin to cause damage. And so that's why your person can suddenly seem so different from one moment to the next. Yes, Glenda.
Yes, I was going to ask you, we're good to extend, are we today?
Sure.
Okay. So the disclaimer is we're going on because we have questions up here. We want to try and get to them. And so we're not going to end at 2:00 Central Time. We're going to go on and address these other issues. Christine with a K, I see you there, but let's go to Marcy. Marcy, go ahead. Just unmute your phone. There you go.
Well, hi. Hi. I just wanted to share, as you recall, I asked about a geriatric psychiatrist and we had an appointment and we went to see her and she was kind of confused on why I came. I sent her all the records, all those tests, the DBAT, all those that you told me to send, Tam. And she said, well, we know he has vascular Alzheimer's and she met with my daughter and myself, I would say for 45 minutes. And then she met with my husband and probably spent maximum 10 minutes with him. And so one thing she said is, why hasn't he been on memantine 20 milligrams? He was only on 5, and we went to a new neurologist the day after Christmas, and he increased it to 10. And she says he should have been on 20 a long time ago. So she increased that. And then the other thing that she told me is that he cannot be left alone anymore. And my question to you is, my husband hasn't driven in 5 years. We only have one car, and it's he would never think of driving. He hasn't in years. He doesn't know how. He doesn't remember. He doesn't cook. I've always cooked his meals. He takes walks around the neighborhood by himself. We live in a loop, and he walks that by himself. So I'm kind of perplexed. I did have somebody come in from home, Seniors Helping Seniors. But really, it's just for somebody to sit with him and talk with him, and to pay that kind of money. I just don't feel that financially that I should do that at this time, and rather save my money for when he really needs help. So at what point do I determine in my mind that he needs this help? Because he dresses himself, he bathes himself.
That doesn't indicate anything. You're continuing to say that a person who a neurologist has told you has such severe brain damage, they should not be alone, and you're making reasons why it's okay for them to be alone. He's going to take the loop until one day he doesn't take the loop and he doesn't come home. He's going to not drive the car until the day his brain tells him he does drive a car, and then he gets in the car and they find him 3 states away, or they find him in the car accident. I mean, you can't make logical assumptions about what a person with dementia can or cannot do. And what is shocking to me is that you've actually had the doctor tell you to stop this. And Glenda will tell you, I think her experience is similar to mine. We don't usually find doctors who are willing to take that step and tell families, this is what you need to do next. If a doctor told you this person's not safe, this person's not safe. And what you're doing is setting somebody up for failure or somebody up for something dramatic to happen. And you don't want that to happen. And it can be easy, so easy for all of you who are caregivers to have the doctor overlook that this has taken a toll on your abilities mentally as well. It's exhausted you. Guinevere, every time we talk to her, tells us how absolutely exhausted she is. Melody says she's exhausted and she just got back from a break. Kimberly's not looking forward to what she's fixing to have to go do. Marcy, I look at you and you just look like you've about done the last mile you can do. I mean, when I meet caregivers, and Glenda's going to say, Tam, you got to work on this too. You look like a person who's terminally ill. They don't realize what's going on anymore, but you do. And it weighs on you and it wears on you. So if I have to leave someone at home, and sometimes you do, this is an expensive, expensive disease, then I, by God, make sure they have a marker on them. They have on a wrist alert band, a wander alert band, that I have a picture of them, that I took a picture of them the first of every month, so that the picture I hand the police is not the picture of what them all dressed up for a holiday. It's what they normally look like. I've secured the house. I've done everything that I can do. But to think that he knows to come back from the loop, that's not thinking clearly. I get calls from people who tell me their wife knew to come back from the nursing home after she helped with communion. And I asked him, where did they find her? And he said they found her in another state 30 days later. And I asked him, how far was her body from the car? Mm-hmm. She had gotten 3 miles from it. So we can't trust the person with dementia to do those things. If you actually watch where people have put videos up, they're doing stuff all the time. You and I are not around them that are not safe. And it's because of brain damage. And so if the doctor said it's time, it's time. And that's means you've got a really good doctor, Marcy, because most of them aren't going to tell you the truth that you need to hear to know what your options are and what you are going to do to keep him safe and to keep you alive for the rest of your life.
The other question I was going to email her was, she had said when she saw his MRI, he had polka dots all over it, but I forgot to ask her what that meant. Do you know what that would be?
It's usually going to be some type of stroke that's occurring, or it could be something more related to MS. It could be any number of things, but it should be written in your summary.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. And
okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
We got to get you a break. We got to get you into support group. We got to do something. We got to do something to make you feel better.
Yeah, I'm in a support group. So
good.
Maybe let's get you another one, a funner one. Okay. Remember, support group is not, oh, Marcy, you think your life is bad? Let me tell you how bad my life is. That's not a support group. That's a war story group. You don't need that. You need people that are going to be there with you through all the rest of this journey.
Yeah, I'm in a war group then, or whatever you called it.
The war story group. Yeah, the war story group. I mean, some people thrive on that. They really do get up on their high horse about, oh yeah, mine's much worse. That is not helpful to most people. So look for another group. A lot of the memory care buildings every memory care building has a support group. They let you come to support groups. Your loved one doesn't have to be in their building. They're there to give support to families, not to get you. So
I do have one last question. I have heard that if you relocate, like if I sold our home and relocate to where my children are, we don't have any children around here. So I am in this by myself. So would my husband go downhill faster?
No, ma'am. The disease is going to progress. It's just that once you take them out of that familiar environment, it will appear like they've had a sudden progression in the disease, but it's just because the surroundings are not as familiar as they used to be. But it goes back to the 7 things that make home home. You make home home, and being where you have more support is critical. Your husband would never tell you to kill yourself while you're taking care of him with a terminal illness. He would tell you, go where our kids are, get support, take care of yourself. I'm dying, but I want you to go to our babies' graduations, to their marriages. I want you to be the grandmother and tell them about me. And you can't do that if you go first. So yes, move and be near your family. Let them support you. Be a grandmother. Go, girl, go.
Right. And I promise you, Marcy, I'm going to work on her delivery over the next couple of months. So so Tam, that's on
Yes.
our agenda. We're going to be talking about it. Okay, Christine, finally, we've gotten to you.
Okay, so I could go on. First of all, I wanted to thank you guys because I've learned more from Dr. Tam's talks than I think any other resource I found. And as a displaced Texas girl, it's nice to hear y'all's accents.
We have
Yeehaw.
that. We have that.
You do, and it is nice. My first question is, a while ago, Dr. Tam, you mentioned something about the left eye going out having problems. I think. Have you said something like that? What's going on there?
It's called occipital blindness, and it usually is seen in stage 6 of the disease, and it's due to damage in the right occipital lobe, which is in the back right side of the bottom part of the brain. And remember, the right side of your brain runs the left side of your body, left side of your brain runs the right side of your body. For some reasons, this part takes such a dramatic amount of damage in the disease that it loses the signal from the left eye. And at that point, the eyes are only seeing these tunnels in front of them. And so now this person's vision is like this. And they're typically seen by the staff as being more combative with others because the staff's not understanding that this person actually can't see you coming. So by the time I did see you coming, if I'm naturally a fighter and David suddenly jumped out at me, I swing at him. Well, then David goes back and tells the nurse, she's really combative over there. And nobody recognizes that I'm combative because David didn't understand to walk right in front of me and come up in the eye I can see out of. Does that make sense?
Yes. My mother has, she's diagnosed with mixed vascular Alzheimer's dementia, and she's been complaining that her left eye is blurry, but she's actually mostly sweet and compliant so far.
Yay.
Yay. My other question is, someone else had mentioned about the memantine and donezepam, whichever, I can't recall. My dad was just diagnosed and they wanted to put him on it, but I recall you saying that it's really not that helpful if you're put on it in later stages. And he's already at that I'm not bathing myself all the time stage. He got lost and I had to take the keys away. So I'm like, is it helpful?
I can find you neurologists that will tell you anything is helpful. I can find you neurologists who will tell you the only thing you're doing is making a pharmaceutical happy. Research on those medications, not Namenda. Namenda is needed until the end of life because Namenda stops the brain from building up too much glutamate, and the blood-brain barrier is damaged in dementia, so the brain's not able to shed glutamate, so that's what Namenda does. But the others, Aricept, Razidine, and Exelon, the original intention of those was to start them in stage 2 or stage 3, and that way the person would continue to progress into aging but never develop to stage 5 of the disease. They would die of heart attack or stroke before actually requiring care by others. In our country, however, most people are not diagnosed until stage 5 or stage 6 of the disease. and they're immediately put on that medication. And now what that medication does is, the research indicates, it draws out the worst part of the disease. An additional 2 to 3 years. That's $200,000 to $300,000 of care. And you're drawing out your person's final part of life when they have the most brain damage and they are least like themselves. And so
Okay.
for family, the question is different. Would your family member say, I don't care what it is, keep me alive as long as possible? Would your family member say, I have a terminal brain disease, keep me comfortable, feed me chocolate, and let me go? And, you
My
know,
family's going for the
conversation.
chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm for the chocolate myself. Give me the chocolate. Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to, that's what I thought you had said, and I just wanted to double check it because I'm, doubting myself.
No,
But-
you're good. And come back to
All right.
Texas, like 96 degrees today. It's lovely.
Working, yes, it is lovely, and we're already in summer. I don't know how that happened. We had like maybe 3 days of winter. Thank you so much for that, Christine. Judith had said she appreciates your discussion on incontinence and the symptoms that lead to that, I should say. I guess that's the way of putting it.
Okay.
All right. I have failed to mention, those of you that have called in on your telephone, if you want to join us in this discussion or have a question or a comment, you just press *6 on your telephone, and that will unmute your phone and we'll be able to hear you. So I can't see them on my screen. I have to intentionally go over there to know that there's somebody on their telephone. So I apologize to you. Anybody else have a question, a comment, a situation you're dealing with that you would like Dr. Tam to address? We won't be back until May. And so if you have something, of course, you can always, email that too, and we'll get to it on our next session.
I have a question I'd like to ask as a bit of research of everyone. Of the group on here, is there a way for you to let Glenda know how many of you believe you're going to end up being the caregiver to the end of your loved one's life? And how many of you believe you'll be using memory care or skilled care?
Now
We're trying to decide how to get the best amount of information out to families that can help them the most.
Yeah, and you asked that 2 different questions, so you'd probably have to go to the chat box. I was going to say you could just raise your hand. So the first question was, do you think you're going to be your person's caregiver till the end of their life? And you can raise your hand on Zoom and I can count that up. Okay.
Melody is saying yes.
1, 2, 3, 4. Those of you, those of you that don't have your video playing, I can't see that. But at any rate, okay, so a few, Tam, believe that they're going to be the caregiver until the end of life. And then the second question was, how many of you believe that you will, refresh me on that one, Tam?
I don't
Your
remember.
second
Maybe
question.
I got the same question twice. I don't know.
I
Surely somebody out there was listening and can tell us what it was I said.
think you were talking about having to use hospice or some other intervention or someone else to help in the care.
That's
That's
right.
probably-
That's
that's
what she
probably-
said.
Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you,
Right.
Mister.
All right.
Thank you.
So, well, can we make the assumption there? Yeah, Diane says yes. Maybe we can make the assumption that those who didn't raise their hand before believe that they are going to have to get assistance with care of their loved one until, the end of their life, which would be a lot more people. Yes, Judith, a lot more people believe that.
Can you raise your hand for both answers?
Here, there you go.
Because I did.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
And we have others over here on the chat boxes. If you see, they're also chiming in and saying combination me and others, and yes, that they will need help with others. So I don't know how scientific that was, Tam, but at any rate,
Well,
she said that she
scientific-
will also, Minerva
Minerva
said she's
said
going to
she'll
add
answer.
those questions to the survey. That way you'll get more accurate response. Okay.
Okay.
My answer gonna be the same, both of them.
Yeah, yeah, we'll have them on there, Guinevere. Okay, well, we've gone about 17, 20 minutes past, and so if nobody has another question or comment, I'm not gonna keep y'all on here just to keep you on here,
I
right?
have one, Glenda.
Okay,
Me too. I have a question too, whenever
okay,
she's
all
done.
right, all right,
Thank you.
great.
Go ahead, Miss Marcy.
That's Monica, right?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
Monica.
I'm
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Bad biphone.
Well, my question is, well, let me just give you a little bit of my background. I take care of my parents. Both have dementia. My dad is 93, my mom is 88. And I believe that they haven't been really diagnosed by a neurologist. They just ask 3 questions, and based on their responses, they just say, well, it's too late for the medication that will slow down I'm sorry, I'm nervous. The slow down the progression of the memory loss in the case of my dad. And my mom, she was just giving the medication, which I haven't started her yet because I might need to do accommodations. Both my parents share their room, and if my mom gets up several times throughout the night because she has incontinence, I don't know how will I be able to handle that, because according to the medication, it might cause dizziness or nausea or something else. So I might need to sleep in their room just to make sure that she's safe.
The biggest falls in a house in a
Yes.
person with dementia occur in the kitchen and the bathroom, because those tend to be our sleekest surfaces because of water or because of grease, and also because they're the place most likely to have a throw rug. The second thing is, if mom's getting up an awful lot during the night, I'm going to first stop fluids for her at 7 o'clock at night, but I'm also going to talk to the doctor to see if there's something else that's going on with her. And then if even when I stop fluids at 7 o'clock at night, and even if the doctor said, well, we can try this medication, and she still gets up multiple times a night, in that case, I might consider, in addition to night lights, I might consider putting a bedside toilet next to the bed. Now, remember, when you read that medications have a side effect, it means that when they did the study of giving this medicine to 10,000 people, somebody said this medicine makes you nauseous. And yes, for Aricept, one of the big side effects is it makes the person terribly nauseous for about a 2-week period. And so that's to be expected. But other symptoms occur because somebody recorded that they had those symptoms. And that's why you read about medicines that have all these different things that happen. It doesn't mean it happens to everybody. It means that when they did the test on the medicines, people reported these side effects. Does that make sense, Glenda?
Yes, it absolutely does.
And then the next thing I do, because you're taking care of 2 parents, and oh my gosh, do you earn your brownie buttons and angel wings, is before I sleep in their bedroom, I think I put a baby monitor in there. And that way, if I hear somebody with a fall, or I hear somebody who actually needs help, I'm able to get up and go in there and help them. I wouldn't leave them in a dark room. I would try to set the bedroom up as close as possible to how their bedroom was set up in their home, so that the brain knows that much. Try to keep the same stuff. I knew one family, I've told Glenda this story before, they moved their mom, and when they moved the mom, they took the garage and converted it into an exact replica of her bedroom and bathroom. And so they only brought the furniture. Everything else was an exact replica. And I thought, well, in a way, that's really brilliant. And in another way, I wonder if it ever bothered her once she stepped out of her bedroom that the whole rest of the house had changed. But anyway, so, things like that, I think.
Yeah. I do have a monitor because my dad already fell twice during the night.
Okay.
He just loses his balance, and they sleep on the first floor. I have a 2-story home, so my bedroom is right above them, which I can hear the noises even with the heater or with the air conditioner. I can hear everything that they're doing, but still I cannot see. So I had a monitor, which has been a blessing. because it gives me a peace of mind that I can, if they make a noise, I can always open my eyes and see what they're doing. And they have a bathroom in there. They have an in-law suite, so everything
Right,
is fairly
right.
close, and they have a nightlight. All that is, I mean, I think it's good for them.
Well, if
Um,
a community, if we had a gentleman who was getting out of bed repeatedly in the night and falling, we
I
would
have-
actually, they
Mhm.
would bring his bed down to where it was almost at floor level, and then they would put a twin mattress on the bed, on the floor next to his bed, so that after he goes to bed at night, that twin mattress is pulled out, so that instead of falling out of bed at night, he falls onto another mattress. So there's different things you can do to try to protect him from that.
Yeah.
But again, it has to do with probably having the doctor check his prostate, and the same thing, no fluids after 7. And then you want to wake people up to go to the bathroom before you go to bed for the night. And so one of the things that happens is an older bladder is no longer balloon-like. An older bladder is a folded bladder. And so one of the things we teach professional caregivers is, if I'm going to put somebody to bed for the night, I'm going to set them on the toilet to pee. And I hear them pee and I think, oh, their bladder emptied, but it didn't really empty. To make the bladder empty, I want to turn water on at the sink. I want to then brush their teeth and wash their face and hands, because that introduction of water into the mouth should make the bladder squeeze again, so that I actually get an empty bladder. Then I put the person in the bed and I give them, I wash their feet with a hot washcloth, because when mama washed your feet at night for that generation, it said, don't get out of bed again, your feet are clean. Then I do their prayers. And at some stage, I say the prayer and the person repeats it. In some stages, the person says the prayer and I wait with them. In others, I say the prayer and they simply say amen. And then I tuck the person in tightly, the same way their parents did when they were children, the same way they tucked you in at night. And all of those things have said to your parents, it's bedtime, go to bed now, don't get out of bed. And if I've taken care of any bladder issues, then I should have a pretty good shot at getting them most of the way through the night without having any bathroom issues. Does that make sense?
Totally. Thank you so much
Okay.
for
And then if I'm
all the
worried
advice.
mom up and is dizzy, then even though it's an ensuite, I'm still going to put a bedside toilet right next to the bed, because it's much easier for her to get out of bed and grab onto that toilet and use the toilet and then get back into bed than it is to even take 15 steps to the bathroom. Because we begin to lose balance after the age of 35 as adults. So you have to work on balance as you age.
Yeah.
Okay.
True.
All right. Thank you so much.
Monica. Thank you so much. I want to circle back around for just a minute, Tam, and then I'm gonna, let's see, Vanessa has her microphone unmuted, so I'll get to you in a second, Vanessa. I kept thinking, Marcy, when we were talking about your husband going around in the circle and Tam's admonition that at some point that may not work. I kept thinking in my mind that they do make a watch that has GPS on it, which, is not going to solve all the problems, but it might address some of them. So in our follow-up email, Marcy, I'm going to put a link. Most of them were terribly expensive. I was sitting here looking online, trying to remember if that was correct, but there is one that's just primarily a GPS watch for older adults. And so I'll put that link in the follow-up email that's going to come out to you in a day or so. Christine and Karen had a little conversation over there on the chat box. And Christine asked, are you considering a caregiver if your person is living in assisted living? And so this is another question, Tam, if you've been told, they shouldn't be alone. And Karen said, yes, that's what they've been told in support groups. Christine responded, thank you. Sometimes not sure it qualifies, since being a full-time caregiver is so much harder, not even in the same ballpark. And then Karen responded, they are on your mind. You check on them, etc. Counts is what we've been told. I'm not sure. I didn't follow that totally about what is being counting. What is it counting towards? Karen or Christine, if either one of you could address that.
I just meant when somebody, like, for example, you did that survey, do you expect to be your person's caregiver till the end of life?
Okay, I gotcha.
If I'm if I really am a caregiver in the, because it's certainly not a caregiver in the same sense as somebody who's there 24/7. It's not even the same ballpark. So sometimes I
Gotcha.
feel weird,
No,
but
you're
yet
still a
it's kind of a
caregiver. Am I
full-time
right,
job
Tam?
for me.
You are
Still a
absolutely,
caregiver.
you're considered your parents' primary caregiver because you're the one making the decisions for them and because you're their next of kin. The other person is a professional caregiver. And while we want them to have an emotional and empathetic response to your loved one, and for the most part they do, they view these people as grandparents to them. They're very, very close to their residents. You are by law and by love this person's caregiver. And the sacrifices you have made, it's one thing to piddle 2 blocks down to go see somebody. It's a whole nother thing to load up for the weekend to go to be at a nursing home or to be in a memory care. That's a hard thing you've been doing. And yes, you need to write yourself a letter about what a good caregiver you've been. You have made sure family has been there, and family matters. We know during COVID, because we couldn't touch the residents and because their families couldn't touch them, we know residents died because of the lack of human touch. And to have their redhead come through the door, yeah, that's a difference right there. It's a
Yeah,
difference right there.
for sure.
I have something too.
Yes.
Christine, even though you're not
Hair's
there,
not red, Kimberly. Your hair's not red.
oh no,
No,
no, but even though you're not there 24/7, your mind is there. So your
And
mind is always in caregiving mode.
Yep.
When my dad was in a nursing home, I didn't even want to go on a vacation because my mind, when I was at work, I was still caring for my dad.
And where was your heart, Kimberly?
Huh?
Where was your heart?
It was there. I was a
Mhm.
caregiver. I never stopped being a caregiver until he took his last breath. I mean,
That's
even when he
true.
was in the nursing home, so even though you are, no matter where you are, you're still a caregiver 24/7.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. That is so kind. But I never want to take anything away from the whole different stratosphere it is to be hands-on 24/7. But you're right, it is on your mind all the time. And I'm the only one available for my family, and my husband's the only one for his family. And we're taking care of 3. Actually, it's both his parents. And we kind of wondered if we were needing to get in therapy or something because it is on our mind all the time. Like it never goes away. I'm like, is there something going on? Like I need some sort of help. But it's true. But thank you. That's so kind, Kimberly. Thank you.
Welcome.
Kimberly is wise, and you should really
Yeah.
listen to her. That y'all are doing care for multiple parents. It absolutely takes a toll on your marriage. It absolutely does. And it, like Kimberly said, she couldn't even go on vacation because she never stopped knowing where her dad was. And it's not the same as grandpa's home at home and probably fishing today. Somebody else is responsible for your loved one. And that takes a toll on you.
Yeah.
And what you need to know about professionals is we want professionals who love and care, but when they finish their 8 hours for the day, they go back on with their family. Kimberly never once stopped thinking about her daddy. You never once stopped thinking about yours. And when you got yours plus your husband's, it takes a toll on you. It takes a toll on your marriage. It takes a toll on your sex life. I know, Glenda, I'm not supposed to talk about sex on here unless we make preparations, but it does. It takes a toll on you. It wears you down. And it is true. When I see a family caregiver, they look worse than the person who has the terminal brain disease, because the person who's sick, Kimberly's dad, he didn't understand what was going on. He didn't understand what was happening, but Kimberly did. And because of that, she could never turn it off. Glenda could never turn it off. I could never turn it off. And as years go by, you don't turn it off, do you, Kimberly? It just comes a little less of a burden. It's still there.
Yep. True. So true. Jerry mentioned that she had been told that there were shoe inserts that can accommodate a location tag. I'm going to look that up, Marcy. So I'm going to look that up also, and I'll include that in the follow-up.
And I've heard of families just tying the Apple tag into the shoelaces. So I've heard of that.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And if somebody doesn't want to wear a watch band, you know, a lot of times they will eventually not notice that it's around their ankle. We certainly have seen that used in memory care. These things are so sensitive, they can tell the difference between I fell down and I bent down. They're
Yeah.
so much more than what they used to be. And Marcy, your biggest thing is not that you're letting your husband still have as much independence as possible, but that if God forbid something happens, you're able to quickly respond and we're able to get people who can help him there as quickly as possible. And I think that's what you're trying to do. But
Yeah.
don't ever trust that one of them won't suddenly remember that, hey, I drive a car and there sits a car with keys. Because you just never know.
Yeah, I
Anything
have a
else?
wristband on him. I have a wristband on him and an air tag on his shoes.
Yay.
now.
Well, you're ahead of the game then, Marcy. Good
Marcy, I
job.
have a secret tag between your shoulder blades. I've already had you tagged.
Yeah, really. Thanks, thanks, Marcy. But I'll share that with others also. So
Yeah.
thank you for
In
that.
fact, I even wear one myself because if
Oh.
something happens to me, he wouldn't be able to tell anyone. So I have it on there that I'm a caregiver for him and all my information.
Oh my
Smart.
gosh.
So
Smart.
I love when I talk to Marcy, I learn something every time. Everybody thinks I got to take care of the person with dementia, and nobody stops to think, what if something happens to me? Can Marcy's husband actually tell 911 what she's allergic to, what medicine she's on, and who her doctor is? And Marcy's got it all ready in case something
Yes.
happens. You've got to remember to take care of you as well. And that means, Guinevere, that you have a notebook on your stuff, not only his stuff, but your stuff as well. So if paramedics show up, they know what to do. Anything
Right,
else?
I'll get on it.
It's on your to-do list for sure.
Yes, it is, along
Yeah.
with my letter.
That's right. You need something more to do, Guinevere. Melody, did you have another comment?
I was just gonna say on the air tag, my husband didn't want it to see it, but we cut a little piece of the rubber out from under his primary shoes. In fact, 3 pair of shoes, and glued it into the rubber, and it's done just fine for years
Oh, wonderful.
until you need a battery change. But
Then you have to dig it out and change the battery, right?
right,
Yeah.
it's worth
Great.
it.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm so grateful for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Melody, and take care of yourself.
I will.
Yeah, I know you're doing the best you can do. Everybody is. Okay, well, let's see. We've gone 35 minutes over, which is wonderful. We had a lot of good questions, and I think that probably, Tam, we're going to see this, that we're going to be going over since we're every other month, right? So,
Right.
okay, here I'm shamelessly promoting, and Tam's not promoting this, but I am. If you don't have the Itty Bitty Dementia book, it's a wonderful resource. You can find it on Tam's website. I'll put that in the chat box, but also tell you it is www.tamcummings.com. That's pretty straightforward, and it's a beautiful website. I looked at it last night. Also on that website, you're going to find Becoming Dementia Aware as a Family Caregiver Workbook. And Tam has told me, and I wasn't aware of this, I guess we've talked about it before, Tam, forgive me, that if you look at the podcast that she's done on the Caregiver Teleconnection website or on YouTube, oh, look, she's got her Itty Bitty Dementia book, that this workbook goes along with some of those sessions. You'll find all those topics also included there on the Becoming Dementia Aware. And so for some of you, that may be a really good resource for you. I just wanted to let you know it is available and it is out there. Did I cover that correctly, Tam? I mean, as far as the content.
It is 350 pages. It is 12 chapters, and each chapter actually corresponds with a chapter you and I did for WellMed Charitable Foundation. So if you get that book, there's an hour long, or in mine and Glenda's case, an hour and a half long session that matches each chapter of the book. And each chapter has pre and post test if you want to see what you knew before versus what you knew later. And then it has all of the paperwork and tools that we use in gerontology. So it's a way to get information out to families and to get videos out to families, because while some of you are able to go forward into memory care and into skilled facilities, more and more and more, we are seeing families having to do care at home, and we've got to get families taught how to do certain things and how to make their doctors aware of certain things. Because
yeah, that's right.
for help.
That's right. When Tam and I were talking about this this week, I was relating a story of a friend of mine, and her mother-in-law was in a personal care home paying $14,000 a month. This was up in the Northwest. And so when Tam says we're seeing people having to care for their loved ones in their home a lot longer, you see that number and you can understand why. I mean, you know, who could afford $14,000 a month? The lady died recently. So it is not an issue for that family anymore, but it's an issue for a lot of people. If it's 8,000, if it's 6,000, whatever, that's a lot of money. So people do need to be equipped with what they need to take care for the loved one at home. And that's what Tam's trying to do. Okay, I don't see any
So
more
we're all
questions.
depressed now, Glenda.
Oh, yeah.
Kimberly's
Did you have
depressed. The
something you wanted to
Christines are
share?
depressed. Pardon?
I was asking Judith if she had something she wanted to share. I can't, she's very actively involved in the conversation, so I wasn't sure. I get you have to unmute your microphone, Judith. Can't hear you.
It just happened. Okay, unmute it. There we go.
There you
Okay,
go.
it's just you bring up so many things that I need to be aware of. I don't, so I guess I better get your book, but it's, and I'm getting tired. I must admit, I'm getting tired.
Yeah, yeah. Got to take care of yourself, Judith.
I want to remind you, and Glenda will back me on this, every normal, loving human has the very same thought, which is, oh God, please let this be over tonight. Can they just please go to sleep and let this be done? This is the most degrading disease, and it's killing me to watch them die. Every single human has that thought, and that is a normal thought. And if your person dies tonight, you didn't make that happen. It's just normal to have that thought, because it's killing you to watch what's happening to your loved one. And you see the pain years later with Kimberly, as Kimberly takes her knowledge and tries to step in to help a godmother and knows what's coming. And it's the same with Melody doing what she's doing, and the two Christines today, and Miss Dockett, God bless you. It's normal to feel like I've reached the end of my rope. And when you feel that way, look at if and like Glenda said, who's sitting around on $14,000 a month to spend on this? If you're sitting in your balance, and maybe the best you can do right now is a 2-week respite, but it'll keep you alive. If we can do that, if you can do that, and we can get a nursing home to take this person for 2 weeks, it's usually 2 weeks to a month, because the caregiver needs that kind of rest. And when we say that, I don't mean you now need to go see them every day for 12 hours at the nursing home. I mean, you need to sleep. You need to catch up on you. You need to get your life ready for the next part, which is going to be you alone. Because I don't want to see happen what happens. And what happens is the caregiver dies first, and it's because of all you're trying to do. So build in respite for yourself if you can. If you can at all, call your children. Your children are still afraid of you. Call them, scare them, make them show up, threaten them. Threaten them. You know what? If you lie to them and tell them you're leaving them $1 million when you die, and they find out there's not $1 million, what are they going to do to you? There's nothing they can do to you anyway.
That's right.
You people want to help you. Let them help you. Reach out to others. Ask for help. I know it's so hard. It's not part of American culture, and it's so hard to do. And you're so afraid to leave your loved one, but it's going to be okay. But it's not going to be okay if we can't keep you alive.
Right.
Okay.
Take care of yourself, Judith.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, I think we're going to wrap up now. Y'all watch the calendar. We'll be back. It's usually the first Tuesday in the month, so it'll be probably the first Tuesday in May at 1 o'clock. And we're going to continue doing this format because it seems to be so helpful to everybody. And personally, we're learning so much. I am anyway. I have to, don't want to include you in that, Tam, but I'm learning a lot. That's why I'm still here.
Every
I know. It's just amazing, amazing how much knowledge y'all have and you share it with others. And that's just such a gift. So Tam, thank you so much for being with us today. You have any final words? David, I see that. Thank you.
Christine, move your daddy. And then take your husband out to dinner tonight. I don't care if it's Sonic. I don't care if it's Applebee's on a date night, whatever it is. Y'all go do something for y'all. You are extraordinary children, but you deserve each other. And then go do something for him.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
All of you. All of you.
It's hard work. It's hard work.
Do something nice for yourself tonight. No death shows, no murder shows, nothing like that. But do something nice for yourself today, please.
That's
Okay.
right.
And remember to write a letter about what a good caregiver you've been, Christine and Guinevere.
And everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
Along with your other homework, you need to add that.
Thank you, Glenda.
also.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Tam.
y'all so much. It's such a pleasure to be with you every time that we're with you. And just take care of yourself. That's my message for you as we leave today. See you in May.
Kimberly,
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Blessings all. Thank you so much.
thanks to all of y'all. Take care. Bye-bye.